This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello, everyone. I'm Don Lemon in New York. You're in the CNN newsroom. This is breaking news that we're following in the search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. A source close to the investigation is telling CNN that the aircraft took a sharp left turn, then dropped to a very low altitude before it vanished from radar. That is a very different picture of the timeline that officials were working on up until now. Much more in just a few seconds here on CNN. Meantime, airplanes from the United States, China, Japan, Britain, Australia, all on their way again to a remote part of the Indian Ocean with eyes on the water. It is another day of looking for debris that might not be there and chasing satellite images taken several days ago. The space they're searching is vast. The pieces they're trying to find are relatively small. So let's go live now, straight to Kuala Lumpur and Sima Mohsen. Sima, I just said that a source told CNN about updated radar data. How does this picture change with this new information?
Don, it changes so many things. It really does bring us more detail. It's a small amount of detail, but significant, Don, in this investigation into what happened on board flight MH370 shortly before it disappeared off the radar and disappeared for the past 2 weeks. Day 17 here as sun rises in Kuala Lumpur since the plane took off. Let me tell you a bit about the detail that we have from this source close to the investigation. Now, what we understand is sometime between 1:19 and 2:40 a.m. a military radar believes that the plane not only made a turn, but it dropped to 12,000 feet. That's around 4,000 meters. Now, the turn, it took around 2 minutes on a 777 to make. That could be anything from 90 to 180 degrees. A complete U-turn, effectively, Don. But crucially, the new piece of information that we've learned about the dropping of altitude to 12,000 feet opens up a lot of possibilities and clarifies the picture for us, Don. One thing I must say, though, is that we don't believe that dropping to 12,000 feet was anything sinister to try and avoid radar or anything. Let's just clear that right up the top here. Dropping to 12,000 feet does not remove a plane from any kind of radar, so it was still visible, particularly to this military radar, of course. But what it does tell us is that something went wrong on board that made the pilot or somebody inside the cockpit take that plane right down. Now, there are a number of possibilities which I'd like to share with you, Don. One is depressurization. Were they trying to bring the cabin pressure down to an altitude where people could breathe easily because of something going on board? Were they turning the plane around and bringing it down to a lower level but to try and avoid other air traffic? This is a very busy part of the kind of lane of air traffic. So were they coming out of the way of other flight aircraft because they were having trouble on board? Were they turning around, Don, to try and make an emergency landing? Now, last week I went to Kota Bharu. Now, this is in the northeast of Malaysia, on the eastern coastline, just off the South China Sea. We met some fishermen who were out at sea that night when the plane went missing. Just below where the flight was, they say they saw a low-flying aircraft. We can't independently verify that, but they said they'd never seen an aircraft flying so low before. But more importantly, Don, Kota Bharu Airport is the nearest airport to the last known location when the aircraft identified itself as flight MH370 before it disappeared. Now, this airport has a runway long enough for a 777 to land on, ample room in fact, 7,900 feet, that's around 2,400 meters. That's enough for a 777 to land on. If it was trying to head there for an emergency landing, that would be the nearest airport to do it at. Is that what the pilot or co-pilot on board were trying to do before the plane disappeared? Many questions raised by this new development, but certainly a very important piece of the jigsaw puzzle. And let me remind you, Don, where I am here in Kuala Lumpur, there are a lot of families waiting for every piece of information that they can get and holding on to it because this pieces together where their loved ones might be. Don?
239 people on board that plane. Thank you, Sima Mohsen, live for us in Kuala Lumpur. Let's get